reasons why I like Clubhouse is because it's off the cuff. You don't have to have anything prepared.
We are recording, and I caught all that.
Oh, Paul, you're blushing. Actually, we just were having
okay.
a long discussion about Clubhouse for everyone watching. Dan, have you actually like messed? I know you kind of were messing around with it for a little bit, but have you gotten into the scene?
Yeah, I've never been one of the cool kids, but I've gone into a few rooms. I've listened. I've chatted with a couple of friends. I can see why I can see the appeal to it and where it would be a valuable business tool that I am still trying to properly implement into my social media strategy.
Yeah, actually, Paul, you're the one that really taught me a lot about how to use it. I was like literally on there for the first time, like I have no idea what the hell I'm doing.
That's right. We had a whole freaking welcome room, and I'm
like
sorry.
a half a step above.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing.
It was fun because there was a welcome room. I can't remember who it was, but you were in there too. It was a welcome room for somebody else, or no, Barkus just started a room with no name.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
That was it. He started a room with no name. And it was like, there's all my friends in it. And that's kind of the cool thing about Clubhouse is that you see, so like, this is the first time that I think that we're actually talking, like, can't even call this face to face, but we've talked, like you and I have talked,
right?
But like, we've never met in person, but there's this kindred spirit, like in the Amazon community, right? Like, even if there's like people that are doing the same types of things, it's like, you get me, like I get you, you get me, let's hang out.
No, I think I bring this up on almost, and Dan, you can correct me. I think I bring this up on almost every podcast we do. Is what amazes me about the Amazon community is how open everyone is to like meeting even like everyone's in competition, but you don't feel like you're in competition with anyone because everyone's sharing their information and helping each other out and boosting everyone's ego. Like it's just a really cool vibe, and it's a really good community to be part of.
I think that. To tack onto that, I think that support, and I'm going to say this kind of tongue in cheek, I think that supportive mentality is because you're not going to get any support from Amazon. Like, I mean,
literally.
So
in fact, they're actively trying. Sorry, they're actively trying to stop you. Like,
I mean, kind of. I call seller support the sales prevention department.
That's hilarious.
But I mean, so it's funny, but it's also kind of true. They're not great. Like I walked a client through opening a case to change a title. I know this is way off topic. I'll get back, but I walked through, I'll segue, I promise. So I walked a client through a case, open a case, get the title changed, right? Pretty common, pretty cumbersome task, as many people know. Sometimes they just say, okay, sometimes no. But they never give you a reason why no. So I told him just keep reopening the case and be polite, professional, and persistent. And I think about the 5th or 6th time he reopened it, whoever was managing the case at that point was like, congratulations, you win. It's like a lottery. Like you just have to get an agent that's willing to do the work. And that is a terrible way to run your business, but it is difficult for me to argue with the numbers that Amazon is putting up. So,
which incidentally is how you get dates, right? You just keep calling and calling until you get an answer.
That's what I do. I guess that's why I'm single.
I mean, we did, prior to starting recording, we did talk about how I got married. My wife said yes when I was literally making like $400 a month. And McLean, you were like, and she married you?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's, I don't know. Maybe it was like, I know that you're going to go bald in your future and you're going to just have this nice shiny spot almost in the middle of your head. And it's going to look great. That's why I'm wearing a hat, because I got
whatever,
You're looking more and more like Bezos. That's what I'm saying.
There's a lot worse things you could lose.
That's it, yeah. And then I'm going to be ripped Bezos, like that one photo of him looking like he's destroying the world. Anyway, sorry, we're all over the place, but yeah, I have a problem with Clubhouse. A lot.
That's the moral of the story.
Yeah, we could do a whole episode on Clubhouse.
Yeah,
I know.
Well, I guess let's get on the real topic, which is advertising. It's like my favorite, the psychology specifically of advertising, which is one of my favorite topics. And Paul, I should also mention that Brendan Fields isn't here today. His son fell out of his crib last night.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
little boy.
He's
So
he's okay though.
he's okay. Yeah, he's just
Okay.
scared.
Well,
He's just
the kid's
scared.
okay. Brendan's pretty tired from staying up with him all night, which is why he's not here.
Yeah, exactly.
That's reason part 2. Actually, my daughter woke up at 1. She probably woke up because I was talking, as she could hear me. And we don't have a very large house, and she came down and was sleeping. I put her in bed, and then she'd get out, and I was even being quiet. I'd put her in bed, and by that point, it was like 2:33 in the morning, something like that. Yeah, but anyway.
And you were like still on Clubhouse talking as you did this, right?
No, I had said my goodbyes at like 2.
I think you should get your family on Clubhouse because then you could spend more time with them.
That's hilarious.
Oh.
Booyah!
Well, tell my wife. I'll tell my wife to not listen to this episode.
Right. That'll definitely make her not listen to it for sure.
How'd the podcast go? It was great. You don't want to listen to it.
It's super boring, honey. You don't need to. It's the
boring. It
worst.
was.
We didn't mention
really-
you at least like 8 times during the whole
Right,
thing.
right.
I didn't talk about you for the first 5 minutes at all.
So Paul, I kind of know your story and your background, but why don't you, for the viewers watching, kind of give a little background on you, other than the awesome fact that you're from my home place, Colorado. What else is there to know about you?
Oh man. So I'll tell you some fun facts. I technically got my start in quote unquote my entrepreneurship journey when I was like 4 or 5. I didn't think of it as that. I just thought of it as, well, I asked my mom if I could make drawings, take them to the grocery store with her and sell them. And I don't know if that was me. I do remember doing it because I have a son that he has a candy business. And the funny thing, like the reason why he has a candy is 6. The reason why he has a candy business is because then he can have more candy. He doesn't think about it as selling. He just to make himself more candy.
That is crazy. That is how I got started, like, selling candy to kids in grade school.
It's a good
That's one of my best friends did that in junior high.
I even switched buses in the morning so I could run to the gas station and spend my lunch money, and then I would take special orders, which of course were a premium. By the way, that business folded because the school got vending machines, and the principal actually sat me down. Like, I got muscled out by the competition. That's how competitive landscape changed.
Monopoly of school took over the mom and pop shop.
Yeah,
You
for
were-
sure.
It was government. The government took over. I'm assuming you went to a public school, so it was government run business.
Is it that obvious?
They edged you out.
No, I'm just
I went to public schools. I went to private schools. I was mostly homeschooled, and then I
why
graduated
you're
from a
so
public
awkward?
school. Why I'm so awesome or awkward? I didn't hear
It's so
that.
awkward because you went to homeschool.
I went to public school occasionally.
Yeah. So that's, I guess so where were we? Selling pictures, and I actually drew one of my art pieces, we'll call it that very generously, was a drawing of a piece of candy. So I wasn't actually selling candy. I was just selling drawings. I think it was like a Jolly Rancher. And I was really young, maybe 4, 5, or 6. I remember it distinctly, but my sales pitch was I would find grandmas. And I'm not sure if it was just because I knew what my target market was, or they were the only people shopping when we shopped.
I know your demographic.
I'm assuming that it was the latter, that they were the only people there when we were there. And so I would go to them and I would say, would you like this? And I'd hand it to them. And they would inevitably say, why, yes, sweetheart, thank you. And I'd say, okay, great. That'll be 5 cents.
So that's as everyone on this podcast knows, possession is a really important part of salesmanship, saleswomanship. So if you're selling a physical, tangible item, it's really important to help the person physically possess it. Or if it's online, it's really important to help people visualize how they would use it, how it would benefit them, so on and so forth. So at 4 years old, you were a genius. Can't believe you ever made $400 a month.
Well, that's because I wanted, so fast forward.
Yeah.
The thing that I wanted to do with my life was I wanted to be a pastor, which is that's a very odd thing for little boys, I would say, generally speaking.
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to go to many boys in America and be like, what do you want to be? A pastor. But we grew up in a church. It was very spiritual. My parents were very anti-religious, if that makes sense, but we grew up in church. And so I had this negative view of money, really, for the first portion of the first half of my life. I almost viewed it as like, well, if you make all this money, then it's going to make you sinful or something. Something weird. I don't know. Also, my parents were terrible with money. So I had these two things, like they sucked with money. They never talked about it. And then I sort of had this, the environment that you're around will inevitably infiltrate your thoughts, even if you're not paying attention. And I think that just kind of crept in, which money is just a thing, right? Money is a thing. And you could have good people or bad people. And really all it is it amplifies your character.
Mhm.
So if you're a good person and you have a shitload of money, you're going to be able to do a lot of good in the world. If you're a bad person and you have a shitload of money, you're going to, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but
you're totally are. That's all the time. Don't worry about it.
The swearing wannabe pastor. But it just amplifies you. So that desire to kind of work for myself and do it for myself was this common thread throughout my entire life. I started, the little lawn mowing business. So like remember when we were young, McLean, like skiing tickets.
I remember when you were young, but I remember when I was young.
Well, I'm assuming that we're around the same age.
I just
in Colorado.
I don't know what it is about you. I just feel like giving you shit, but take it as a compliment. That means I like it.
That's totally fine because I'm the only boy between two girls, and I've been getting shit my entire life.
Okay.
So maybe that's it. They're like, oh, he can handle it. Pick on him. So like if I wanted to go skiing, lift tickets back then were like in between $20 and $40.
Mm-hmm.
So it would snow. I would find enough houses to shovel the driveways to make enough money to go skiing. And I didn't own skis, so I'd have to also get the cost to rent the skis. And that's how I would make money. In the summers, I had a lawn mowing route that I had around my neighborhood, but then also some across town. And we had a Geo Metro that was my dad's old car. It was a kid's car, so all three of us drove it. First, it was like obviously my sister, and then myself, and then my younger sister. But I would take lawn mowing equipment in the back of a Geo Metro around town, mowing people's lawns.
That's determination.
I didn't have a truck. It stank because I would spill gas in it all the time. And it was also good because then my sisters didn't want to drive it because it smelled like gas. So it was a win-win.
Actually, the moral of this whole story is that kids can get away with anything, so they should be the ones ruling the world because anyone will buy anything off of a kid.
Oh, I ruined the center console in my dash buying a 25-cent lemonade because I put it on the dashboard. It fell over and ruined the electronics.
Oh no!
Because I go out of my way every time I see a little kid with a lemonade stand. I'm like, you are my person. You are my kind of people.
Do you give them advertising or marketing tips while you're at it?
Right.
Every now and again. Actually, there was this girl. I have these pictures. I will send them to you. Or you can use them in the podcast. There was this girl that did this series of ads, like billboards for a garage sale. Freaking amazing. They were like clever quotes, like the coolest, like something like she was doing all these plays and like the coolest guy in the world. I'd have to find it. It was back in like 2017. But I went to the garage sale to offer her a job.
Yeah.
Like I said, hey, if you ever want to intern with anything, this is my wife and I, we run this brand, and we're always looking for creative people. I saw your ads. It wasn't like a little, it was a few. It was like a series of like 5 or 10 on both approaches. And they were brilliant.
Crazy. Yeah.
So anyway, that's the first half of my life. I'm going to skip like my middle years, high school, all that stuff. Fast forward to, I went to school in Australia, came back, for pastoral leadership. Turns out I'm not a pastor, obviously. Came back to America, had my whole life sort of up in the air as you do when you're young and you feel like you're on this trajectory, and then the floor drops out. Came home and was just working odd jobs. I didn't have a degree. I didn't want to get a degree. I felt like I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in ministry. I wanted to help people. What I really wanted to do was start businesses abroad and use those businesses to teach people life skills and help them get out of poverty. And not just that, but then also teach them how to start their own businesses. The problem is I had never, ever successfully ever started a real business. And so thus began my journey of starting and failing businesses. And each one led on, it was like I did a videography business, and then I did I say that very lightly because I had to borrow all the equipment from people that had cameras because, again, I had no money. So I would do wedding videos, and that was terrible. Don't ever do wedding videos unless you know what you're getting into. You can't ask the bride and groom to kiss again if you miss it. Like, oh, sorry, I missed that.
This is our second kiss.
Okay, everyone in the audience. Yeah, we're gonna get some B-roll for the wedding. Okay, so everybody come back and act really surprised.
Right.
So
Mom, can you try and be more sober? Thanks so much.
Yeah, I know that you're at the part. Yeah, but can you cry, not from anger, but joy?
Right. Sounds like my wedding.
So there was that. I started a web design business because I figured, how hard could this be? And that was back when Joomla, I don't know if you guys remember that platform, but Joomla was a thing. We were charging $100 a page for a website. Surprisingly, that business failed. I don't know what happened. And anyway, fast forward to, again, I just kept learning, and everything that I would learn. And I just had this belief that, first of all, I didn't want to go to college. I also had this belief that I was never going to really be financially successful because it didn't matter to me. And my goal was to start businesses and learn how to start businesses so that I could help impoverished people start businesses for themselves. And that still is a goal of mine. And it's really, really cool. I see in like my life how, like, I'm still a person of faith, and I believe that God, I still feel like God is using me in that. It's not impoverished people, but like the platform that I have now, I'm able to help people, and it's super cool. I love that. So 5.5 years ago, I was starting my second round of web development company after being fired from a job that I had. I was there for like 2.5 years, started at this company, employee number 12, helped grow that to like over 150 within the first 2 years, 150 first year, something like that. Set up some massive partnerships. We went from getting like 5 leads a week to about 25 a day. I had my identity tied up in this company. Like, it was my thing. Got fired. Had a earth-shattering moment of, what am I about? What's my goal? Because I had this common theme of, I want to help people, with the business side. I was in this position making a ton of money, well over 6 figures, but I was really, really dissatisfied with life. I just felt like garbage. I was just drinking a lot, way more than I ever thought I would, just constantly with coworkers and things. And I just felt dead inside. And I came home one day to my wife and I said, I don't care if if I have to take a minimum wage job, I'm done. And the next day I was fired. And I mean, good for them, because I would have fired me too. I was toxic. I had a bad attitude at the time. I was really immature, very upset, very angry at them, but that really pushed me out and like forced me to really reckon with my self-worth and what it comes down to. Like, why am I valuable? Am I valuable? Because I had this story that I was telling myself, okay, I want to be a pastor, failed at that. I wanted to start all these businesses, obviously failed at those. I want to help people in impoverished countries, I'm failing at that. I lost my job, I failed at that. And so the story that was playing in my head was not that I failed, but that I was actually a failure. I was actually like, I'm getting emotional, geez. It was actually a failure in life. And it took about 2 years and some therapy, a lot of therapy, for me to get out of that. And I'm extremely thankful for my wife for forcing me to go to therapy. And it was amazing. That experience was one of the most painful times of my life, but it's kind of core to who I am, because I begin to realize that I've done things that have failed, but that does not make me a failure. And that in order to be successful, you have to fail. And you have to be okay with failing. And you can't internalize those failures and say that just because I did something wrong, I personally am a failure. No, that idea failed. It's it. That idea failed. Move on. It's a long ass backstory. Sorry, guys.
Right.
Okay, so
No
then
need to
I was
apologize. It's great information.
No,
I appreciate you. By the way, I appreciate you sharing your story. Mine mine is kind of like that too. A little bit too much drinking, found therapy, struggled with failure. I think that's a common thing among entrepreneurs. So kudos to you for making all those recognitions and changes. Some of that can be the hardest stuff, but really does pay the highest dividends in life.
Mm.
And I
When
can
you're in it.
say, I can say, I don't think we've had a single person on this podcast that doesn't have a similar story. I mean, I honestly, I don't know a single person that's not like, oh yeah, like I was successful right from the bat and I was happy the whole time and everything's great.
Do you
Like,
know who does have that story? Brendan.
so,
Brendan Fields, like the first product he decided to try on Amazon, he hit it out of the park, and then over and over and over again. Although I'm sure he's had his struggles, but that's the way he tells the story. He does tell a story about how he took out a loan and it was very scary,
oh,
and
bad. Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, for sure, he hit it out of the park. Good for him.
It's funny because that's a little bit of a part of my story. Like when I when I got to that point, the position that I had at the company was I was at what was I, the director of channel sales. It was when I was fired because I'm really good at making connections and selling. And when I believe in something, I can sell it because I don't view it as sell it. I don't view it as selling. I view it as helping. Because if there's a product that can provide value and help somebody meet a desired goal, then it's a disservice not to sell it to them. Honestly, if they can afford it and you can't, and you don't want to go out of your way to deal with your own discomfort of sales, whatever. Anyway, so I'm in this middle of trying to figure out what to do. I pick up all these odd jobs. I was doing like some consulting for digital marketing because that was the firm that we were at, was in the digital marketing space, web development, web design. I became known in the area, is what I do. I became known in our local area as the guy that you talk to for website stuff or SEO. And so I was almost forced to start a company in that I had no options. People kept asking me if they could hire me or if I could do something for them. And so finally I was like, okay, let's do this. That was 2014 that I did that. So 2 years after being fired from this company. And I was super stoked about it. And I was like, okay, this is going to be it. This is going to be the real deal. I actually know what I'm doing this time. I know that you shouldn't charge $100 a page. I know how SEO works. I know how web development works. Let's do this. Started it with a partner. And we weren't really making any money. So his wife was pregnant and she was like, you need to get a job. And so he got a job at Constant Contact. And then it was me basically doing all the work. I ended up picking a night job as a waiter and still doing that. So I'm waiting tables at night, doing the web development, web design thing in the day for the local market, which is, if you guys have ever done that, it is hard because the services that you need to do cost a lot of money. And most people in local business markets don't have that kind of money and they don't understand marketing generally. Mm-hmm. So a year into that journey, I had heard about the opportunity to sell on Amazon. And all of my past, I had helped people in my professional career, like start brands, like Grizzly Coolers was one of the ones that I played a part in, like helping, kind of a competitor to Yeti. And I had always thought, those are the outliers. I had always thought that Amazon was retail arbitrage and it was a race to the bottom and who could ever sell it for the least would win. And I'm like, that's a terrible business model. I'm not going to do that. It's a waste of time. But then I heard about the idea that you could actually use Amazon as almost a product research engine and sell to people what they're already looking for, or a better version of that. So that's what we did. Our son at the time was about 6 months old, something like that. And we had some problems with him, not problems, but we were taking him swimming, and a pain point for us was swim diapers. We wanted to use reusables because the disposables are really expensive and they're terrible anyway. So that stuck in our head. But when we were doing our product research, my wife decided to look into swim diapers, and it turns out that seemed like a decent market. It's really small. It's very niche. It's pretty crowded now, but back then it was. So that's what we started to do. We sold reusable swim diapers. Initially, it was going to be just a seasonal product, and we're going to add more. And we are adding more now, but we're really niched into reusable swim diapers. So much so that if you do a Google search for best swim diaper, we'll be number 1 or close to the top in 7 out of 10 of the lists that are on Google. And that's one of the reasons why we can ask twice the cost for ours on Amazon this comes back to, so the advertising and perception and comparison and stuff is what I really geek out about. It's one of the reasons, but it's also the quality of the product itself is really good. We've built a really good brand. We've leveraged nano influencers. We work with a ton of, our tribe of brand ambassadors is phenomenal. They're the backbone of our PR strategy. And then we also have the other, I geek out about chatbots. So 2 years ago, I started a course on how to use chatbots because I was using them back in 2016. Nobody was teaching anything about it. I've paid for tens of thousands, if not close to $100,000 worth of it, continuing education through courses or masterminds or something like that. And so I saw that model as a potential thing that, okay, this is something I do, something that we're getting great results at. There's no training. I might as well start a training. And so I did that. Started Chat Marketing University in 2018 and kind of quickly became known in the space as the chatbot guru. And meanwhile, I'm like, but there's so many more things that I love to do, like the psychology of marketing and branding and the whole thing with influencers and stuff. And so I guess that's me now, is that, again, I guess this common theme of people keep asking to buy stuff from me, so I have to start businesses. The biggest request from speaking engagements would be not for the course, to hire an expert. So for 2 years, I was telling people no. Finally, this year, we started an agency called the Chat Agency, partnered with Norm Farrar, Shane Oglow, and Jason Ayers. Jason, many of you guys may not know, he's not really in the Amazon space, but he's one of the most brilliant people I know. And so far, it's going really, really well. We're in the private beta phase of testing. We have 25 clients and started taking clients on in September. We're not cheap, and I'm fine with that. We're not for everybody. But this year we're looking at pretty explosive growth, and my goal within 3 years is to be at a 9-figure range in profit within 3 years. And I feel like it's going to be a ton of work, but we can do it.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
So that's yeah, thank you. Long story, but that's the whole shebang.
So do you still sell drawings, is the question.
I buy drawings now. I don't sell them. I have art on my wall from friends that I buy from. I like to support my friends who are artists.
That's awesome.
Now, do you think being interested in sorry, I don't know. I'm not good with organized religion. Like you were saying, your parents were into organized religion. So was it a priest, or is that what you were wanting to do?
Oh yeah. No, it was no, I never wanted to not get married. So we didn't grow up in the Catholic Church. We grew up in kind of a non-denominational, just a large church like here in town. It was technically charismatic Christian. So if you want to Google that, there's some weirdos. The joke is that charismatic Christians are like granola. It's full of fruits and nuts. And I've toned down since then. But
do you think your desire, like, let's take away the actual religious aspect of it, but just understanding humans, is that, because it sounds like to me everything you've done in life really was to understand human behavior and their psyche and to help them in whatever capacity you could, just like a pastor would, or a priest, or someone in your field. So do you think that anything that you learned when you were younger, being in that, religious or spiritual, whatever you want to call it, orbit, do you think that helps you become a good salesperson and a good advocate for helping people build their businesses?
Now that you put it like that, I've never thought of that as being, I am obsessed with the psychology of human behavior. I'm obsessed with why people do what they do, right? So that so today is the 7th of January. Yesterday we had riots in DC. I am like, why is our country so divided? Because if I were to go to somebody who I was completely polar opposite in beliefs, right? I could find common ground. And that there's always common ground. There's always common ground, and it's generally around life or around like life satisfaction, about family, generally speaking, unless you have somebody with major psychosis or something like that. But generally speaking, you can talk to people like this whole pro-gun, the abortion debate, right? It's all around the sanctity of life. That's what it is. The conversation is around the sanctity of life. One side says that the guns protect my sanctity, and they're fearful. They're saying that I need this to protect myself from bad people. The other side said, no, guns kill people. You can't have them. But the conversation is around the sanctity of life.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I always like to get inside the heads of people. And so on a psychological level, because I want to understand them and I want to help them. And so I think that obviously, like, yeah, I've never made that connection, to be completely honest. Like, I was like, maybe that's why I'm obsessed with psychology and human behavior. So
I think that, like, McLean, I think you're hitting on a point. So for me, I've been in consultative sales of some form or another my whole life. And for me, the more I listen and the more empathetic I am, the better solution I can custom tailor to a client. So, I have 2 ears and 1 mouth. I use them accordingly, listen twice as much as I talk, but really understand what drives that person or their behavior, and what's going to get them from point A to point B being, some goal that they have. I want to quit my job. I want to spend more time with my kids. I need to make another $3,000 a month, whatever their goal is, to be able to properly build that, list of action items and that roadmap to that goal. You need to clearly understand that person and how they operate, what that goal is. And to do that, I think you need to be empathetic, because if you're always thinking about, I'm going to close this $100,000 deal, that's you. You're thinking about you. But if you're selling them only services or goods that they need, like you talked about earlier, it's just a good fit. It's not even really sales anymore. It's consulting.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the reasons why I was so dissatisfied at the end of my career at that place that I was working was they were going through major growing pains. I can say that now with experience, because now that I own companies and I have employees, I can see that now.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I thought they were just lying assholes and that they were taking on people and not providing the service that we sold them.
That might also be true.
I mean, it very well could. I mean, and a lot of that was tainted or colored by my coworkers. And I have a coworker that if I need a little bit of, it's funny, I'm a lot more on like the positive energy, positive motivation, but every now and again, that negative really gives you a little kick right in the butt. There's this guy that I just think of every now and again that he would make fun of me because I would on calls say, well, I'm an entrepreneur at heart, because I am. Now I can say that I'm actually an entrepreneur, because I run these businesses. I'm a successful entrepreneur. How successful I'll be, I don't know. Maybe I'll lose everything tomorrow, but then I'll start over again. It's not that big of a deal, right? Like that's because that's what we do as entrepreneurs. We create, we solve problems. And he would make fun of me for that. And he told me verbatim that I would be a better salesperson if I was okay with lying to people. Yeah. And I was like, dude, and that, like, right now I'm angry. Like, I'm mad at that. And that gives me a fire to be like, dude, I'm going to prove you wrong, because you can be a good person. You don't need to lie. In fact, if you are lying to people, anybody who's listening to this podcast, I want you to know, first of all, if you feel like you have to lie to people to sell your product, you need to change your product.
Absolutely.
Like, you cannot and should not lie to people. That is wrong, people. Right. Don't do that. Like, there are, out of the billions, trillions, quadrillions of possibilities of ways that you can solve people's problems, lying to them is never one of them.
Right. And I'm going to even circle us back to what you were saying earlier, Dan and Paul. You were talking about being empathetic to different points of view, right? And that in the end, we're all humans. So there's a baseline with which we all pretty much can agree with to some point. It's just it's the extras that you don't. And you were saying that you utilize that opportunity to sell services. But let's take a step further and talk about how you can utilize that for products. Because the reality is you need to get into the human psyche to understand how to sell your product and how that product is going to add value to the audience. And if you want to expand your audience, you have to be able to relate to a lot of different kinds of people, right? So it's not just about being a good person, you know, just in life, or about being a good person and understanding people and services. It's also about, if anyone who's watching this, most of you sell products, it's about figuring out how to make that product important and valuable for as many people as you can. And that can be tough because, you know, there's obviously niches and there's different people that you're like, oh, I know for sure that this product will work well for these type of people, but let's figure out a way to make it work for a wider group of audience, right?
Yeah. I love that, the common ground thing, because when I was younger, I was very headstrong, my way or the highway. I was the stereotypical arrogant Christian douche that people make fun of. I'm not kidding. I was a self-righteous asshole.
Mhm.
Like, I believed I was not living what I professed to believe, which mainly the profession of Christianity is forgiveness and grace. That's it. Really, those two. You can sum it up in those two things, really. Love, maybe. Love, forgiveness, grace. Forgiveness of the fact that you fail, and grace towards yourself, but also grace towards other, and forgiveness towards them. And you can't go into somebody and say, like, well, you believe this wrong way, so I'm going to hate you. It's just stupid, because ultimately at the core, we're the same. Like, we have the same, generally same goals, but yeah, with connecting to people and figuring out what it is that motivates them is all a part of the sales process, because in the end, people aren't buying swim diapers. They're buying a lack of worry. They're buying security. They're
Convenient.
buying convenience. So in ours, it's a one size fits all solution that goes from 3 months old to 3 years old. We've started expanding into for chunkier kids, but also there's a special needs market that's very underserved. It's solving a real problem for people that are diaper dependent, whether those people are little babies or they're adults. And again, they're not buying the product; they're buying the solution. And it's if you can understand your audience, and you can understand what makes them tick, and you can understand their goals, right? So their aspirational goals. Some products are more aspirational than others. Some definitely solve a problem. Like ours isn't really aspirational, but like an aspirational product would be like I'm sure you've seen those commercials, like the new workout mirror things that like everyone has one now. There's like Nordic Track and Mirror. That's an aspirational product, because you're buying it because you aspire to be a better person. You want to get fit, whatnot. That's so understanding that, why people buy. Is it aspirational? Is it solving a real problem today? Are they hoping for a better future? Those sorts of things, all part and parcel.
This is a question for both of you. When it comes to product research, right? When you're like, okay, I want to sell something. So what a lot of people do is they'll pick a product, you know, it can be based on something that they're passionate about. It can be based on helium-10 results showing them, you know, what the cells are. But my question for that, and this just goes back to the psychology of it, do you think it makes more sense to pick a product and then decide your target audience, or possibly decide your target audience, who you want to help, who has the issues, and then find a product to resolve that problem?
I'll go first if you want.
Yeah.
So for me, normally my products come to me, you know, whether it be something I sell or something my clients want to sell. Normally they either have their general product picked out, or I'm just expanding an already existing product line. But if I were to pick a product based just out of the blue, so to speak,
Mhm.
I would choose the product based on the numbers, the statistics. What is the demand? What is the competitive landscape? And then I have a bunch of basic criteria, like no expiration dates, not too fragile, nothing over 17 or 18 inches long on one side. It's kind of in a sweet spot of a price point between 20 and 70 bucks, so on and so forth. Not hazmat, not, you know, so this isn't the psychology of selling, but it's kind of the ticket to the dance. You know what I mean? Like, this will drive profitable growth while mitigating risk. And then after that, I try and think about that product, and I think about it a lot. How is this product used? how could it be used, right? Because we know when we're doing keyword research, people are using products or calling products different ways and different things all the time.
Oh.
You know, in the Midwest, they call them gym shoes. A lot of people call them tennis shoes. McLean, you probably call them running shoes. Some people call them sneakers.
I call them sneakers too.
Sneakers, right. So, but clearly these are phrases that are critical to include. But then beyond that, what are the features, functions, and benefits that push your hot buttons? These are comfortable. These are built for long lasting. These are pink. Maybe you want pink shoes. Definitely some people want pink shoes. Definitely I'm not one of them. But there is a demographic of people, and that will be a hot button for them. So it does require a lot of research. When people are buying this type of shoe, what turns them on? What feature, function, or benefit? Maybe it's quality. And likely it is a combination of 3 to 5 features of a product that will capture the largest swath of people that purchase that product. And not shoes necessarily, but products can often be used for different things. And that's a great opportunity to use products in a different way. Excuse me. So if I'm selling mason jars, they can be used to can vegetables, but they can also be used as drinking glasses or candles or fairy light holders, right? So, and to those people, someone looking for, I don't know if you guys know what fairy lights are, but basically this, people put a bunch of lights and decorations in them and they're $20. So don't do that product on Amazon. It's way overdone. Anyway, so, you know, for me, it's looking at the competitive landscape, looking at what keywords people are searching for and finding, and then kind of getting creative and saying, how else could people use this product, and how else could it benefit people other than the core use? And then, of course, your core use research is, you know, for me, it comes down to 2 things. You're either going to have buyer's remorse or buyer's joy, right? And to get buyer's joy, you have to really understand what makes your customer happy or potential customer. So buyer's remorse, we're all familiar with that. We see memes about them all the time. I bought this sweater and it looked great on the model, and then they get it and it's like tiny or ill-fitting or whatever. The opposite of that is buyer's joy. They open the box, maybe the box is decorated in a certain way or whatever, and then they open it and there's tissue paper in there with a handwritten thank you card and so on and so forth. And then the product itself is at least as good or better than advertised. And that creates buyer's joy. That creates a warm and fuzzy, and it goes into the psychology of great. It also reduces your returns, by the way. So.
Okay, Paul?
I mean, those are all excellent points. I'm going to kind of break down what you said, because you talked about the criteria. And so what I hear is you look for things that aren't going to cost you an arm and a leg to ship. And so for people new to selling on Amazon, they don't necessarily think through that. And I go back to when I was doing product research years ago. I mean, when we were looking at launching things, I saw it, again, for me, my approach is brand thinking. And so I always start with things that I think that I can know a little bit about. And so that's my starting point. And so I was limiting things to like pets, outdoor market. I'm an outdoorsman. I love hunting and hiking and fishing and being in the mountains. I mean, Colorado, it's a playground back there, right? Like this is great because during COVID, we went to the mountains a ton. I was saying like it's over, but you know, when there was all these lockdowns going on, we were able to get up to the mountains. But that shipping size and weight and criteria, like one of the things that I had identified was pregnancy pillows, because Rochelle had just had our first son, and we were, you know, planning on having more kids. There was very low competition. And we ended up not going on that route based on the advice from one of our friends, because we started with very little money. Like honestly, like we put a course that we took to learn how to do this, and the inventory order on a Discover card, which anybody listening here, that was 5.5 years ago, and I do not advocate for that at all. There are other ways to raise money and make money now. Don't do that. Okay. And because of that, like the pillows were more expensive, the storage, the storage would be more expensive, the shipping would be more expensive, all of it would be more expensive. But coming back to the original question of demographic first versus your customer base, building out a customer base, or you like the product first. Honestly, like for me, I think that both are valid. But really what it comes down to is if you start with product first, you really need to get to a point where you either have a subject matter expert on your team, or you can become passionate about that yourself. Because again, you're not selling products, you're selling either solutions or aspirational things or anything along those lines. And if it's between somebody who's passionate about what they do and somebody who has something cool, people are going to go with the person that's passionate. And that comes through in your marketing copy, that comes through in your listings, that comes through, it's asinine to assume that people are going to go to Amazon and make a decision off of just your listing. They're not. They're looking at competitors. They're looking off Amazon. Oftentimes people will start their research journey on Amazon. Then they go off Amazon to read other reviews, because it is in the general American psyche now that sometimes reviews can't be trusted on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Amazon hates that. It is what it is. Like, we've never done anything shady for reviews, so I don't necessarily care. But I'm glad to say that, like, we've done a ton of work off Amazon. So for me, it's all about the product itself. So I have a running notebook of ideas for business ideas or product ideas. And there's a great book for anybody listening. It's called the Lean Startup Method. And there's this whole process. Basically, what you do is you come up with problems and solutions. Really, that's all it is. You think through, okay, we have a problem. So let's say this microphone, for example, I'm going to use this. It's a podcasting microphone. It's really nice, but it requires a bunch of extra peripherals. So the problem is, it's a great microphone, but you got to buy all these extra things. So a great solution, an elegant solution, would be making it so that you don't have to. And actually, sure, the manufacturer of this did that because they saw that podcasting was taking off. So that's one example of that, is looking at that's a small problem. But again, I think of problems. I think of things that can provide solutions to those problems more elegantly, or even better, like the only time that can be done. And that's generally where I start my search. We think of the businesses. So there's a couple businesses I'm buying into this year. One I'm buying, the other one just has a more unique story. And that's another way that I look at it, is let's say that type of product has been on the market for a long time. If we can tell a better story, if we can do a better job of communicating our value on the psychology side of like communicating to customers, and that's another thing that we do. So I feel like your answer was way better, Dan, because you gave point by point by point.
Well, I've done a few of these, and I'm on camera all the time. The thing is, I think we're saying the same thing. I think that somebody has to be passionate about the product, right? Somebody has to be deeply knowledgeable to be able to identify the demographic and then cater to that demographic. And whether you're selling running shoes, it's funny, while you were talking, I thought of a great inspirational shoe advertising campaign. At some point, and I'm not into athletic shoes, but at some point, I think it was Reebok made a shoe with some sort of something in the sole, and they claimed that it made you jump like this much higher or something like that. Obviously targeted at the basketball, but like people that play basketball and buy basketball shoes, clearly that's an aspiration for them. We would like to be able to jump higher. So it is very specific sometimes, right? Because not everybody that plays basketball would like to jump higher, but probably most of them.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's kind of what I was trying to get at, which is that you have to be passionate about your product, but in my opinion, you have to be just as passionate about your audience, and you have to really know your audience. And I don't just mean for the product, like why does this person want the product? Because for a person to even get to your product, you have to get their attention, right? You have to disrupt whatever train of thought they're on, either on the radio, on Facebook, on social media, and you have to stop whatever it is they're doing to get their attention. And to do that, you have to understand the psychology of how you get that person to even look at your ad. It doesn't even matter what the product is. They don't care what the product is until they actually get your attention. And so it's really interesting to think of it that way, especially since we have moved so much from brick and mortar to online, where the competition is so much more fierce. You know, if you go into a grocery store, there's only so much competition you're going to have against bread, right? Other brands of bread. But when you're online, the competition is much more fierce. So then you really have to get into what makes a person stop whatever they're doing, whatever they're in the middle of, and pay attention to your ad, and then decide that they want to buy your product. And that to me is something that I think a lot of people miss. They miss out on that. Like, what is it that's going to make a person disrupt their life, not their lives, but that whatever they're in the moment of doing, to actually pay attention to your product. I don't know, Paul, if you have any. I know you, Mr. Psychology over here, has a lot of opinions about that. How do you deal with that kind of branding?
I am constantly making note of ads that make me stop. It's so much so that I actually have running notes of these things that stand out. I am a weirdo that will go. I'll see on Facebook an ad that triggers something in me, whether it's a stopping. Like, that looks really interesting. Mm-hmm. I'll go through the funnel. I'll go through the whole thing, and I look at, okay, what's going on? What are they upselling? And I have some notes here. So just from Hulu ads. Okay, so one of the things, there was a Hulu ad for Purina. It started off with this statement: you care about better future for every pet. So that phrase is just so defining. And they're saying, the great thing about this is advertising should do something. It should make you raise your hand or opt out right away. Mm-hmm. And what they're doing here is that for the pet people, they're like, yeah, that's me. For the people that don't have pets, whatever, doesn't matter. But the people that really they care about, and again, this is on Hulu, so they can target interest-based and all that stuff. But I love that. It's so simple. You care about the future for every pet, and so do we. So they're aligning. You are an awesome person, and so do we. We're just like you. Come take this journey with us. Buy Purina, basically, is the thing. I don't like Purina, but
you're a shitty person if you don't care about animals.
Maybe that should be Purina's new tagline. You're a shitty person if you don't care about animals. Yeah. Buy our dog food or you're going to hell. See, I tied in the religion thing too.
There you go.
Guilt, yeah.
Boom. Podcast done. Boom.
Because I don't care about animals.
Yeah. I wish I had a mic to drop.
No, I agree. I mean, there's so much other things that you can do. Dan, have you read Dan Ariely? Predictably Irrational? Dude, you will geek out. Okay, so Dan Ariely is a behavioral economist. I think he works for Brown. I get this wrong. I talk about him all the time, and I really should know where he works. But he's a professor. He's super smart. He's written a ton of books. And
you mean he's a professor at Brown University?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he is super smart. Agreed.
He's hella smart. I'm not sure if it's Brown or Harvard, but he's an Ivy League professor, and he's hella smart. There's all this research on buying behavior and what makes people tick. And I'm not going to – I would just read the book in general, but like a lot of this stuff, like he talks about how advertising and psychology, like comparison, like humans are hardwired to compare things. So let's say if you have a challenger brand that nobody's ever heard of, you could leverage the psychology of the challenger brand by associating yourself with a brand that is your aspiration as a brand, right? So let's say that like, again, getting started with Bow and Bell Littles, our swim diaper company, we're aligning ourselves with the Nordstroms, the Pottery Barns, the Crate and Barrels of the world. We're not aligning. In fact, we had a buyer from Sam's, year 2 in business, contact us. She called me 3 times. I was like, hard no. Our brand is a quality, high quality luxury brand. It's weird. We're a luxury diaper brand. Really. And it's like, we are not a fit for Amazon, for Sam's. We don't want to sell to you. And she was trying her hardest. Yeah. You know what she told me? She was like, well, we sell $60,000 diamond rings and golf carts. I'm like, I don't care.
You know what's funny about that, Paul, is that within brands, they will have sub brands and products. So here's a little peek into my diet. I buy DiGiorno pizzas, and they have a product called a pan pizza, and it was not available at Walmart like the first three years it was out. And I suspect that's because they wanted some sort of brand, I guess, like some sort of false scarcity or actual scarcity, but also they wanted to protect that particular premium brand of their product line, because really no one thinks high quality when they think Walmart or Sam's Club. They think quantity and low price.
Exactly. And that's regardless of how much she was trying to sell me on the fact that they have high value stuff. It doesn't matter, because the public reception is Walmart is the shit store. Like, honestly, that's what it is. It's like, it's garbage. It's garbage product. So now that's not to say that we won't sell in Walmart, but we do have it on our roadmap. I mean, we may sell before this, but there's a good brand that we look up to in this space called Aiden and Ananias, and they sell muslin swaddles and those sorts of things. They sell a line of their stuff in Target called Aiden. It's just Aiden by Aiden and Ananias. And so that's the same strategy that we'll take, because we've gotten the national recognition, we've gotten all this press and stuff. Getting into retail won't be that hard for us. We were going to make a big push for it last year, but COVID. And that's basically the strategy, is that it's going to be the same. Basically, I haven't come up with a name, but basically that same concept. Again, because it comes back to comparison. I feel like we're off field what your original question was, though, McLean.
That's okay.
We sort of wondered.
That's why I like these conversations, because we just go all over the place, and it's fine because it's all informative, and I think, you know, we can go wherever you want the discussion to go. In fact, actually, you talking about DiGiorno and Walmart, it kind of reminds me of people on Amazon when you talk about price points, right? And you, Paul, said something about a race to the bottom, right? Like, everyone's like, oh, you just go lower and lower with your price, someone will eventually buy it. But when you are selling a luxury brand, right? Like, that psychology of, oh, this is cheap because, you know, the pricing of it's cheap, you know, that kind of stuff really matters, you know. And grant you have to have a differentiator to make it so that you can, you know, price point it at a higher one than your competitors. But if you're selling something that, you know, you really think is premium, like my mom, for example, like, she doesn't like buying cheap stuff. She just doesn't. Like, it's not even like a snobby thing. It's not like she's really rich. There's nothing like involved with that. She just likes high quality stuff. So if she sees something on Amazon and she's comparing it with a bunch of other stuff, she doesn't necessarily automatically go to the cheapest product, even if they all look the same, because in her mind, she's going, well, if it's that cheap, it's not going to hold up. It's not going to last me a long time.
Right.
And I want something more quality. So even something as simple as, you know, your price point psychologically can change how a person views your product. Even the number, like, you know, they always say like $6.99 as opposed to, you know, like, why don't they just call it $7? Well, because $6.99 sounds cheaper to the buyer. It just does. So,
You know what's funny about that, McLean? I totally agree, by the way. If you price too low, you will, the perception will be that it's a shitty product. So I swept out my garage last spring, and I specifically went to the dollar store and bought a broom, a $1 broom. And I was like, I'm just going to sweep out my garage. It was pretty dirty. And then I'm going to throw that broom away because I didn't want my house broom to be full of garage stuff. It didn't get filthy. It wasn't as filthy as I thought. It's now my favorite broom. But I went into that thinking, this is a disposable item because it's $1.
right.
Well, I'm probably the only guy that has a favorite broom. But anyway, my point is totally exactly what you're saying. If, you know, your price point, people are super sensitive about it. If it's too high, they won't buy it, obviously. And if it's too low, they won't buy it for a whole suite of different reasons.
Right. And you have to know, what is the product meant to be used for a long time, you know, like,
right.
That's really important too. You know, people are going to spend a lot more time analyzing the price of a chair, something that they plan on using for like years and years, over maybe some shirt that they're wearing to, you know, some event that they don't plan on wearing again. So.
Right.
I think on that, I think that a lot of sellers are exactly in that mindset, like you said, Dan, is that they, and I think a lot of it just stems from, to be completely honest, I don't know if it's bad. I think it's just like legacy teaching that has just kept it just stayed in the system for forever. And what we're seeing with Amazon is a real shift to brand first. I mean, they started this a couple years ago, but we're seeing this even more strongly in 2020 going into 2021. They're courting real brands. They're making your brand suite, much stronger. They're giving more protections as a brand. And I think that's the thing, is that up until now, a lot of people in the Amazon game is they looked at it as like, what's the least I can do for the biggest reward, which isn't necessarily wrong. I do the same thing. Like, it's what's the biggest needle, like, effort to move the largest thing, right? But what it comes down to is that sort of thinking led to, well, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to do it faster. I'm going to do more. I'm going to sell less, do more, and then I'm going to win. With zero thought about perception and perception management, or perception crafting, or crafting perception. And so this goes back to the product picking thing and the customer base. I think that a lot of people start by picking a product. Maybe they tune it a little bit, and then they find that they have a little bit of market, but then maybe their margins start getting eaten by competition. The way around that is to focus on from the get-go, even if because that's how we started. We started with product first. It did solve a solution that we had, but the way that you get around that is by building community around your brand, focusing on your brand story, focusing on the unique value that you provide that is immaterial, that is not monetarily driven, and the extra things. And that's how you win those battles. Because, I love talking about Apple, and it's funny because some people are like, well, why would you bring them up? Because you can be Apple. Anybody could be Jeff Bezos. Anybody could be Elon Musk. We all have that capability within us. Like, you're thinking here, but your vision is too small because you think that you can achieve something just because you have negative beliefs, false beliefs. I mean, I'm here to say that everybody is a human being. Elon Musk still wipes his butt, I'm assuming, or he uses a bidet. He still poops.
Oh, he
Jeff
hired
Bezos.
someone to do that.
He's got wipers, yeah.
But you get what I'm saying, is that he is a human being, and he's accomplished these things because he's had methods, and he said, well, I'm going to get to Mars. Cool. He's going to Mars. And there's this weird thing that people say, well, I can't do that because of X. If you start saying that, you need to analyze, why are you telling yourself that? Right. It's not true. Maybe you don't have the resources now, but that doesn't mean you can't build them. Elon started somewhere. But again, coming back to the whole pricing thing, if you are telling yourself that you can't be the next Apple, or you can't be the next Anchor, or you can't be the next X, Y, or Z that have built a solid brand, you need to stop telling yourself that and look at ways that you can become the category leader, because it's open. Anybody can. And that's the great thing about competition, is it makes you all better.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I just want to win, and I'm going to win.
Winning. #winning.
Right?
Now I'm going to get sued by Charlie Sheen.
He has no money, so I'm sure he's trying to find ways that he can make some.
I can't imagine. What did he spend all of his money on, Paul?
I have no idea. I'm sure
hookers and blow.
Hookers and
blow. Heard it here first.
Actually, I mean, really, all this circles back to, and we can end it on this note, but the Clubhouse, what they did so brilliantly was make it so that people wanted to be part of it, and they made it very exclusive. You got to have your invite. So once you're in, you feel cool, you're part of the cool crowd, and you get to invite like 2 people in, which makes you go, oh, which 2 people do I want in, Mm-hmm. So just understanding, and I think that's what makes Clubhouse so brilliant, not just because it's a really great platform for things like open discussions and learning and stuff, but just understanding how they marketed it is amazing. And that's what makes a brand great, is when they can, I'm not saying everything has to be exclusive, but there's something to be said about, oh, it's like the cool kids, I want to be part of it. And it's just awesome marketing. So
that's that strategy. So I'm third book recommendation is Growth Hacker Marketing by Ryan Holiday. He outlines that exact strategy. This strategy is not new.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing about it is that I'm in awe with how effective it is. But the funny thing is again, this is not a new strategy. This has been done for decades. And the fact that it's going on now is proof to the fact that human psychology still works. It's the bedrock of marketing. And
Right.
understanding how to think strategically with an objective instead of tactically, because tactics change. Search, find, buy, rebates, review requests, giving people a product in exchange for review.
Mhm.
Tactically, those things change.
Right.
But the strategies, if you have sound business principles, sound strategies, those never change.
Right. Exactly.
It's just application.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, on that note, we're coming to an end. Jan, did you have any other questions? Paul, anything else to add to this? Awesome
No,
stuff.
I'm going to wrap up my three book recommendations that I gave. Again, would be The Lean Startup. I can't remember off the top of my head who wrote that, but you just Google it. It's called The Lean Startup. It's basically about product iteration, developing a system to continuously improve products. The book Predictably Irrational by Dan Ariely. He has a bundle on Amazon Kindle. It's like $20 or $30. You get like 3 books. It's called the Irrational Bundle. That's the one that I have. It's amazing. And then the third is that Growth Hacker Marketing by Ryan Holiday. And the second two, Dan Ariely and Ryan Holiday, all have to do with the psychology of marketing. The first one is about product picking, product tuning, product development, product improvement.
I'm going to piggyback off that. I don't have a specific book to recommend, but if you do research on grocery shopping and the psychology that they have walking into a grocery store, right? Like I did a psychology course on this in my business class in school. It's like weeks of material. And it's really interesting the way they talk about how they lay out the grocery store, what products go where. Nothing is an accident involving that. And you can apply a lot of that to Amazon, such as impulse buys. That's like one of my favorite topics is like, you're standing in line, you're about to check out, you have all your stuff, you think you're done. And then at the counter right there, they have all these cheap items. And, you can make a lot of money just off of those impulse buys. And the same thing is on Amazon. So if you really want to understand the psychology of buying stuff, whether brick and mortar or online, I would recommend just researching how grocery stores set up their platform, because it's really interesting.
Or who's really mastered this? IKEA.
Yes.
Because they make you, unless you've been there multiple times, the shortcuts, but they have this path that requires you to walk through
absolutely
the entire 200 million square feet of their warehouse.
I'll be honest, I always know my way to the Swedish meatballs.
Right at the end.
Yeah, Paul, I have to send you, I think I showed it to you, Dan, but there's a really funny video about how they came up with IKEA, and I'll send it to you guys when we're done with it. It's absolutely hysterical.
Awesome.
So anyway, on that note, really appreciate you guys coming on. Paul, thank you so much for coming on. It was really, as always, it's great talking to you, and thanks for letting me give you so much shit. It's fun.
Anytime. And this is funny because I feel like I gave like my life story for the first hour of, it was 30 minutes, but I'd love to come on again because I geek out about this stuff. Like I'd love to come on again. So
we'd love to have you on again, Paul.
Yeah. And I really appreciate, like, we had, was it last week or the week before, we had Norm come on with, we've had a few different people come on, but he talked about his, ups and downs with business and stuff, and he got kind of emotional too. So don't feel bad, you're not the only one.
Yeah, no, that's what we're looking for. I think that's what the listeners appreciate. It's genuine, and they want to hear about your struggles, not just about your wins, right? Nobody cares about your highlight reel. They want to feel like all this tumultuous shit that they're going through is normal. And by the way, folks, it is.
Yeah.
It is. The only difference between any of us and anyone listening is we're the ones talking. That's it. Everyone has a story. Like everyone has a story to tell, and maybe you're at the start of your journey. I honestly believe that I'm in the middle start. Like my story's not over, and your story isn't over either. And I firmly believe I'll end with this, and I'll stop talking. But the reason why I do what I do comes back to that drive to really empower people. And it comes to this core belief that I believe that every single person on the planet has a reason, a destiny, and a purpose, and something that is unique and can only be accomplished by them. And maybe that allow that in that a part of that thing is a lot of money. Maybe it's not. But I think for me, like, life satisfaction is more important.
Yeah.
It just so happens that what I want to do requires a lot of money. But there you go. I'll leave it at that. So you have a purpose, you have a destiny, and there's something that only you can do. So if you're listening to this and you've been at a part where you're struggling, just have hope, because you can crush it. Just surround yourself with positive people that help you instead of hindering you.
Yeah, and if you want to call Paul, I'll give out his personal number so you can call him.
For sure.
Better yet, find me on Clubhouse, because apparently I'm it's the new crack.
Even when he's putting his daughter to bed at 2 a.m, he's on Clubhouse.
Like, why are you talking?
All right.
All right.
Good seeing you. Talk later, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.